Hello, GTF builders. Welcome back. Hope you have your notebooks ready to go. Today we're doing lesson 29, so find job number 29, okay? We're going to talk today about how GTF, God the Father, never leaves us. And you see my little man up here, he doesn't have any clothes on. Okay, we're going to dress him, okay? We're going to review it a little bit. We've been talking about Joseph, okay? Remember, Joseph was his daddy's favorite son because his mother was his beloved Rachel, okay? So Jacob showed this favoritism to Joseph by giving him a coat of many colors, okay? And we go ahead and we talked about how Joseph had, let's put him some night clothes on. He had a dream, right? No, that's not going to stay. I'll have to hold it. He had some dreams, okay? And if you remember, these dreams made his other brothers very, very angry, okay? They were jealous of Joseph. And if you remember what they did to him, they threw him in a pit, and then they decided to sell him, remember? So some people were walking by and they sold their brother. And then they went back to their dad and made their dad think that he had been killed. Remember, they took his coat of many colors and they killed an animal and dipped the blood in it, and they went and let Jacob assume that Joseph had been killed. But in fact, he was sold into slavery. But throughout all of Joseph's life, we know that GTF was always with him, okay? So when he gets to Egypt, he is bought by a man named Potiphar. And Potiphar was very high up in the ranking in Egypt, okay? And he worked for Pharaoh, so he was a very wealthy man. And he trusted Joseph so much that he put him over his whole household, if you remember, okay? So then we moved on to how Potiphar's wife thought that Joseph was very good looking, and she lied about him, and that made him end up in jail, okay? So this is where our story picks up, okay? We're in Genesis chapter 40 and 41, all right? Joseph has been thrown in jail for something that he did not do, okay? While he is in there, God blesses him, and the warden or the man that's over all the jail puts Joseph in charge of everybody else. So God, even in this bad situation, is still with Joseph, okay? So while Joseph is in there are these two men that come, okay? One is the cupbearer for Pharaoh, and the other is the baker for Pharaoh. So we have the cupbearer and the baker, and they both work for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, okay? Pharaoh got angry with them, and he threw them in prison, okay? So while they're in jail, these men, the cupbearer and the baker, they have dreams, okay? And they dream these dreams, and they wake up, and they're very disturbed by these dreams. They don't know what they mean, and they're upsetting. Okay, and so they're talking to Joseph, and Joseph says, well, why don't you tell me your dreams? And so they do. So the cupbearer goes first, and he says, well, in my dream, there's a grapevine, and there's 3 grapes on the vine, or 3 clusters of grapes on the vine, and I take the grapes, and I squish them, and I take them to Pharaoh. And Joseph says, well, I can't interpret the dreams, but God does. God has given me this wisdom that God the Father in heaven, he can tell me what that means. And so he says, what that means is in 3 days, you are going to get your job back. Okay, the cupbearer was always the one for a king that he would always bring the drinks. In fact, it was his job to taste the drink before giving it to the king to make sure there wasn't anything wrong with it. Okay, so Joseph said, in 3 days you will be called back before Pharaoh and you will get your position back. Okay, you'll be the cupbearer again. Well, the chief baker, he's sitting back over there and he's listening to this. And he thinks, well, that was a really good interpretation. That was good. So he said, well, I had a dream too. Can you interpret it? And Joseph says, I can't, but God the Father in heaven is the only one that can interpret dreams. But you tell it to me, and he has given me wisdom that I can tell you what it means. So the chief baker says, well, my dream, I have 3 baskets on my head of bread, and birds come and eat the bread out of my baskets. And Joseph said, okay, this is what your dream means. In 3 days, Pharaoh's going to call you back out. So you'll get out of jail in 3 days. But he is going to put you on a pole and birds are going to eat your flesh. Ugh. So his dream didn't turn out too well, okay? So, in fact, 3 days later, guess what happens? Pharaoh calls for his cupbearer and his chief baker, okay? And Joseph asks both of those men, he says, I told you what your dreams meant. Please don't forget that I am in here. Okay, when you have opportunity, please tell Pharaoh that I'm in here and I shouldn't be in here. Please don't forget me. Okay, so they go out and their dreams came true. Okay, the cupbearer, he gets his job back. He takes the cup of the drink to the Pharaoh and he has his job back. Unfortunately, the chief baker gets put on a pole and the birds eat him. But the cupbearer forgets all about Joseph, okay? So here is Joseph still in jail, and he is in jail for 2 more years before something else happens, okay? This time, Pharaoh is having a dream, okay? In his dream, he has 7 healthy cows, healthy, good, fat cows, come walk out of the Nile River and start eating on the land. Okay? Then after that, he sees 7 skinny, scrawny, sick-looking cows that walk up behind the healthy cows, and the sick cows eat the healthy cows. Pharaoh wakes up and he is like, oh, what in the world? What in the world does this mean? He was very disturbed about what this meant. Well, he has another dream, and it's almost the same thing, except this time it's grain, okay? So he has these 7 heads of grain that are healthy looking, and then he dreams that 7 sick grains of head, they come and they like swallow up the healthy grain. And he's what am I doing? What does this mean? What does this dream mean? And so he's disturbed and he is telling this, and the cupbearer hears him. And the cupbearer remembers Joseph. And he says, oh, Pharaoh, there is a man, a Hebrew man that's in jail right now, that he interpreted my dream. He knew that in 3 days that I would get my job back and I would come back and work for you. And he asked me to remember him, and I forgot him. Well, Pharaoh says, well, let's get this man and let's bring him in here so he can tell me what these dreams mean, okay? So they get Joseph and they clean him up and they bring him before Pharaoh, okay? They give him some nice clothes. They wash him up so he can go before Pharaoh, okay? And Joseph, he says, if you tell me your dreams, God the Father in heaven has given me wisdom to be able to interpret them, okay? I can't do it alone, but God the Father will help me. All right, so Pharaoh says, okay, one dream, 7 good, big, healthy cows come up. 7 skinny, sick cows come up. The sick cows eat the healthy cows, and the sick cows don't even look like they've eaten anything. And then he tells them the one about the grain. Well, Pharaoh says, this is what God is telling you. God is telling you that you in this land are going to have 7 years where the crops grow. You're going to have so much grain. It's going to be so plentiful for 7 years. And then, after those 7 good years come, there's going to be 7 years of famine where no crops will grow in the land, no grain, no food, nothing. So Pharaoh goes ahead and asks Joseph, well, okay, what do you think? And Joseph tells him, I think during the 7 years of good grain, of plenty of food, that we should collect. Everybody should put back in store grain so that when the famine hits, we will be prepared. And Pharaoh thought that was a fabulous idea, okay? The Bible says that he said, okay, Joseph, you are going to be in charge of this project, okay? During the 7 years, we're going to gather grain and you're going to be in charge. And so he gives Joseph a ring and nice clothes. And in fact, Joseph becomes second in command of the whole nation of Egypt, okay? So it's Pharaoh the king and then Joseph. That same Joseph that was thrown in a pit, that was sold by his brothers, that was lied about and thrown in jail, that interpreted dreams in prison and was forgotten about, that same Joseph, because GTF never left him. He never leaves us. He is always with us. Even when we think he's not and things are going bad, we can count on GTF being there. All right, so let's go over to our work order and let's answer our questions. All right. We're still talking about how GTF is a strong framework, and when we get back to class, we will be able to start building our house. So I'm excited about that. Okay. You can find it in Genesis chapters 40 and 41. Of course, it's a book of law, and we talked about how GTF never leaves us. All right. How did God show Joseph that he was with him even in jail? Okay. Remember, the warden thought so much of Joseph that he put him in charge of all the other prisoners. Okay, so even in prison, God was with Joseph. Who did Joseph say could interpret the meanings of dreams? I hope you got that one. GTF. When he told everyone that he interpreted a dream for, that it wasn't him that was doing it, that it was God the Father. What interpretations did GTF give for dreams of the baker and the cupbearer? Okay, what did those 2 dreams mean? Not what they were, but what did they mean? Okay, so in 3 days, the baker, this says hanged. Some versions say that he was put on a pole, but however you want to word it, he was killed. Okay, 3 days, he was gone. And then in 3 days, the cupbearer got his job back. What caused the cupbearer to remember Joseph after 2 long years? Okay, what happened that the cupbearer went, oh yeah, I forgot about that man in prison? Okay, Pharaoh, remember he had his dreams and he was upset about them and no one could interpret them. And that's when the cupbearer remembered Joseph. How did God work in Joseph to influence Pharaoh? Okay, well, he gave Joseph wisdom to be able to tell him the meaning of the dreams, and God was with him and gave him the plan on what they were going to do when they had those 7 years of good crops and then 7 years of nothing, of famine. How do we know that GTF, that God never left Joseph? Well, the whole time, GTF continued to prosper Joseph, okay? He made him successful in everything that he did, even in jail, okay? And in the end, he became second in command over all the land of Egypt. All right, remember you can pause the video if you need to or go back to make sure you have your work order filled out. And I will see you next time. Bye.